Well, welcome to another great interview. And this time, well, if I'm quite honest, I was ever so slightly intimidated. I knew of Ian Boddy already. When I did some more reading up, I kind of realized maybe I'm a little bit out of my depth with my depth of music knowledge. And I brought in my co-host, Martin Eve, to help me out a little bit, because Martin's actually literally qualified in music. So can we introduce Mr., I know everybody knows him, but Mr. Ian Boddy. Ian, thank you so much for joining us.
I'm trying not to be intimidating. It's just probably my northern accent gets people going.
Well, you're a real gentleman, but it's more your CV that's intimidating. You are a synth pioneer, to put it mildly.
Yeah, possibly. I'm not quite sure if I'll go quite that far. There was certainly people doing it before I did it. I always thought of myself more like a second generation. Obviously, Tangerine Dream, Cloud Schultz, all the German guys. Jean-Michel Jarre, Vangelis, they were all doing it, 5, 10, 15 years before I started. But certainly in the UK, there wasn't that many folk. The whole UK electronic music scene seemed to kick off late 70s, about 1980, that kind of time. So I guess I was there at that point.
Well, yeah, and because you did a degree in biochemistry, didn't you? And then left your degree in biochemistry. And then, so what was the sudden join up? So you left you did your degree in biochemistry. How did you not stumble into, but how did you move into this scene?
Well, at school, I went to a grammar school. Such a thing existed when I was a lad. It was an all boys school, and I was good at art. I was good at science. I was good at art. If you're good at art, you're good at art. And I used to do it in my spare time. What I mean by that, when it came to my A levels, as they were called then, I did 3 science exams, but I did my art in my spare time because I loved art. But of course, the people who advise on these sort of jobs and things said, you don't want to go into art. You'll never get a job in art. You'll never make any money out of anything to do with art. So science was what I should do, and biology was my best science subject. So off I trucked to university to do biochemistry, which was good. It was interesting. And whilst at university, I continued doing art by doing screen printing at this open access arts place called Spectro, who people have read interviews with me before may have heard. It's actually a car park now in Newcastle, but at the time it was this wonderful place with screen printing and photography, an art gallery upstairs, an exhibition space, and unbeknownst to me, a sound studio upstairs. So there's me doing my screen printing in my spare time while I should have really been at university doing my biochemistry lectures. And I think it was a conversation I overheard in the Science Fiction Society of all places at the Newcastle University in my spare time, drinking a pint of beer. And somebody said, yeah, you like Tangerine Dream and Schultz and all these weird things. You do know at Spectral there's a sound studio upstairs with the kind of gear these guys use. And I'm like, is it? Okay. So I walked upstairs, the concrete staircase that I can well remember, opened this door, and like this shining light kind of beamed down from the heavens, and there's a VCS3, there's another VCS3, there's a Revox tape recorder. I wonder what all this can do, and somebody showed me, and I was like, wow, this is so cool. And it's this indefinable, it just completely captured my imagination. So
like a eureka moment.
Yes, kind of. I mean, I can remember it really, really well. And within a month, I'd literally packed up all my screen printing stuff and was starting to go into the studio there. I mean, after I graduated from university, I did get a degree in working in one of the labs at a local hospital in Newcastle, and I worked there for 5 years as a biochemist in the labs. Although by the time the 5 years came up, I absolutely hated every second of every day. It just wasn't for me. So yes, a change was afoot.
So the VCS3, was that your first step into synthesis then, was it? I mean, what an amazing machine to start on. A complicated machine and a very challenging machine.
It's not that complicated. I mean, it looks weird because of the way you patch it with the little pin matrix board, which many people have commented looks like a game of battleships. So that quite literally was the first synthesizer. I didn't own one. I mean, I own one now, but I didn't own it then. It was belonged to Spectra. I think they had 2 VCS3s and also the suitcase version, the AKS. And somebody just showed me roughly how to use it. This is the filter, this is the oscillator, you put this pin in here, this happens. And then it was just experimenting, just left to my own devices. And it's a good teaching instrument, the VCS3, because it's quite clear and easy. Patch codes can quite often get very dense and you're not quite sure what's going into where. It's quite simple on the VCS3 to actually see what's going into where. It doesn't have an awful lot of things, but somehow the sum is greater than its parts. I mean, it's not a particularly well-designed instrument. Yeah. I certainly don't want to disrespect Peter as Zinoviev, who unfortunately has left us in the last few days. But in terms of the quality of the build, it's kind of ramshackle. It's a typical British kind of Heath Robinson kind of thing. But somehow, this instrument just sounds like nothing else, and I think that's its charm. It has a complete personality of its own that a lot of synthesizers just don't have.
I believe they're still being made in. There's a guy in Cornwall's making them. Another generation.
Robin Wood, I think, who worked for EMS for a long time. I mean, the fetch stupid prices now, both new and second hand. It's crazy. They're not worth what people are asking them for. It's a fairly simple device, but it has this strange sound which. Even for the gear behind me, I can't get all this to sound like a VCS3. I can get it kind of ish, but it has a personality, and there's nothing quite like it.
So do you have your VCS3 very carefully put away somewhere else? You've got your other kit there, and that's like your special.
No, it's actually sitting on the floor at the minute. I was moving things around. I'm not precious like that. If I use the VCS3, in fact, I've got a very special project which is going to be released in probably October, I think. I'll let you guys know first because nobody else knows about it yet. I've done an album where I've literally just used the VCS3. I've multi-tracked the VCS3.
Oh, wow.
There is a bit of CV control from the more modern things like sequences and stuff, and it's quite a difficult thing to control like that, but I've figured out ways to do it. But all the sounds from the VCS3, and these pieces just have this a charm, a very early radiophonic kind of feel. Mm-hmm. And I think it's going to surprise quite a lot of people because most people assume the VCS3 is just for sound effects. And I've got it playing Berlin school style sequencer lines. It took ages to get it in tune. I had to use some special CV tricks to get it in tune, but it's doable if you're prepared to take the time. And this album sounds like nothing else I've done for a long time.
That's going to sound interesting. Yeah.
It is. So when's that coming out in?
October. It's going to be a limited edition on a record which a Greek company who are going to do that for me, who I've done things before. I did the Altair Redux lathe cut and the Modulations album. So this is kind of like a Modulations 2, but it's just going to be it's all done on a VCS3, layers and layers of it.
So literally everything is on the VCS3?
Every sound you hear is the VCS3. Wow. I'm only using some of the more modern stuff for CV inputs, like sequences and some extra envelopes and LFOs. But every oscillator, every note. I even play tunes in tune, rather, which takes a while. I've got these lovely AJH CV buffers where you can actually expand and contract the octave.
Yeah,
because that's the difficult thing to get in tune on a VCS3. You've got a tuning control sort of on the CV input, but you've also got to tune the octave. And obviously, it's one of those things that as you get it more in tune, the octave's not quite in tune. And as you stretch or contract the octave, then the tuning can go out. So it's this constant fight. But these CV buffers at AJH do help a lot with that.
So was that your first ever synth that you owned?
No. The first synth I owned actually was a Genstring synthesizer.
Right.
You actually used to get a grant at university, believe it or not. They actually paid me to go to university. Yeah. I think I actually used. I think I used three quarters of my first grant to go and buy a Genstring synthesizer.
How much was that, Ian?
I don't know, 250 quid or something. It's on the first couple of cassettes. I didn't pick up a VCS3 in my own until something like 1993. When I found one in a shop, and the guy said, when I was traveling around with Akai, and this guy said, we've got this weird thing here. You probably like this. We don't know what it is. Would you buy it off us for 300 quid? And I'm like, yeah, okay. Oh, there's a keyboard with it as well, by the way. So,
I've never come across a Genstring synthesizer. Is that literally? Is that kind of like a? I'm not trying to play it down. Is that kind of like a Waldorf Streichfett where you've got that because that's a string synthesizer? I don't know.
It's like it's a string. It's a string machine, Gens, and Italian brand. And it was just cheap and cheerful in the local music shop. It's all I could afford. I wanted something which I could play chords on, because you certainly can't play chords on the VCS3. You can if you multi-track, but that was different. So, it was just a little cheap string synthesizer that appears on my first couple of cassette albums.
So if you
I didn't keep it for long because it wasn't very good.
Oh, well, that answers that question.
It was rubbish, to be honest, but it was my first synth, so why not?
So what then led you into, because obviously then you moved on and you worked with Akai for quite a while as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
What was the bridge between the two?
I worked in a local music shop called Rock City, Newcastle, at point in time. But at the beginning, they actually employed me to program sounds for the DX7. They did these things called, I think it was Sky Slip ROM chips. I was one of the very first people to get a DX7 in the UK, and I even managed to know how to patch up the sound. So they initially employed me to do that, and then that kind of fell by the wayside after a while. They didn't really know what they were doing, and so they said, well, you're going to have to go on the shop floor now and sell. And I'm like, what? So I worked there for a few years. It wasn't the best thing I've ever done, but it was a stepping stone, because I started to meet other people in the music industry, one of whom was the rep for Akai, who said, I'm going to leave to work for another company. I strongly recommend you apply for the job. So I did, and I got it. That was 1990.
Well, I was talking to Dominic Houcken the other night, and he was saying he remembers you from the days of Akai, because he was sponsored by Akai, and he was saying he remembers the patches that you wrote for some of the Akai machines. So he was remembering very fondly those days. But then you were with Akai till what, 1999 was it, or into the early 2000s?
No, it was from 1990 to I think 2002 when it actually went bust. I think yes. It kind of left me. I kind of got the phone call. It was a really good job working for Akai. I mean, obviously, I was there right with all the S950, 900, S1000s, and Akai could literally do no wrong. And though in later years, they certainly messed things up. I met lots of interesting people. Flew around the world. Went to Japan. Went to the States. It was great. Got to borrow all their gear free of charge. Made lots of contacts. So when I was made redundant from Akai in 2002, obviously I'm not trying to underplay this, but for a lot of people, being made redundant is one of the worst things that can happen it's one of the worst things that can happen to you. For me, it was a real opportunity, because it was going to be quite difficult with a couple of young kids to actually voluntarily give up a highly paid job with an expensive account in a company car to try to make a full-time living off what I was doing. Would be quite a big risk, but the choice was made for me. So I thought, well, I'm just over 40 at this point in time. If I'm going to do this, I should do it now, because if I don't, when I get to the age I am now, I'll look back and think, you idiot, you should have given this a go. At least give it a go. If it doesn't work out well, get another job. Fortunately, it worked out well.
So that was the point that you started Din Records, was it?
I actually started doing records in 1999, 2 or 3 years before I left Akai. So when I left Akai, I'd already done a couple of production music albums for DeWolf. I'd already done some sound design for sample libraries. I was already earning a bit of income from what I was doing, not enough to live off, because I was doing it in my spare time. But obviously, when I was dropped from a great height by Akai, I either had the choice to get another job straight away or give it a go, and obviously when you work on your music full time, you've got lots of time, so you can do stuff, release other albums, do more concerts, do more sound design, do more production work. So yes, it's worked out very well. I mustn't complain.
As you say, it's a big step, though, isn't it? When you get 2 young kids and all the rest of it, it's a huge step to take, and obviously it's great that it's worked out that way, and it has been amazing, because within Din Records, you've released 60 albums through Din now.
It depends. If you count the whole lot, which is the physical albums on the Din label, there's the 5 Tone Science albums. There's also 26 digital-only albums. The next album, which is going to come out, I think, is the 98th.
Right.
And then there's a one set for September the 99th, and then the VCS3 one that I mentioned is going to be the 100th.
Good God.
Yeah.
That's a coincidence. I didn't plan that one at all.
And your latest album that you've got out at the moment, again, is absolutely amazing. So Axiom is phenomenal. So could you talk us a little bit through about your inspiration around the whole album and how that came about? And I mean, Martin and I were talking this afternoon briefly, and Martin was saying it'd be great to know just where your inspiration comes from when you create tunes, because it's, for any artist, it's not necessarily easy to suddenly just bring that spark.
Yeah.
Or do you just, sorry, go on, Martin,
Yeah, I was wondering, how you keep your inspiration going after having really so many albums. Where I've just released my album, and I'm thinking, where do I go from here? I've got no ideas at the moment to release album number 6. So,
well, I've done lots of different things. I don't always do. Even my own albums tend to change over time. I've gone through different styles, and obviously I work with other musicians as well. Your specific question with Axiom was a guy called Blue Tech, Evan, in the States. He, who has an album on DIN, Liquid Geometries, DIN 57, he invited me a while back to do a track, which is Omicron, which I believe you've got, which was on a compilation album called Portals. And he said to me, what I want all you guys to do on Portals is think back to the 70s and the early 80s, and all the analog cosmic kind of vibe.
Right.
So I went, okay. So obviously that's my background. That's where I came from. So I actually wrote that track first, and it ticks all the boxes. It's got the choirs, it's got the chords, it's got those lovely arpeggios on the Moog. I was really, really pleased with that track. I think it's probably one of the best tracks I've ever done in terms of a quite succinct 5 to 6 minutes. You can almost sing the tune to that one. It kind of starts off spacey. There's some nice sound design, but I was very pleased with that. And then I got to thinking, that's got a nice vibe. Why don't I do an album with that vibe? So I already had a couple of live tracks that I was working on. I had done in a couple of concerts, which were Icon and Nitro, very sequencer-driven tracks. So then I decided it was going to be on vinyl. So that I know how long it's going to be then, only 40, 20 odd minutes aside.
Yeah.
So I worked out 6 tracks, and I worked out a shape to the album, and then I went full force for the analog, the all-out kind of analog, lovely, warm, soft sounds, lots of tape echo. I recently bought a tape echo. So there's loads of tape echo over there, which gives it a certain vibe, a lovely kind of warm vibe. And that was it. I just kind of... Sometimes it's good to focus in on a certain sound or a certain style or a certain subset of the gear. I don't use all the gear that I've got all the time. There's just no, it's just be daft. So that's like or when a classical composer uses an orchestra, it doesn't necessarily have to use brass all the time or strings all the time. It'll use whatever is right for that particular piece.
Yeah.
And I'm a similar kind of thing.
Yeah, and to me, it's got that sort of Tangerine Dream, John Carpenter, Jean-Michel Jarre sort of sound to it, which goes back to the 80s, and so you could imagine it in a film as well.
Yes, well, I also try to have a cinematic side to what I do. As I said, I do a lot of production music, so I'm often writing things I have in image. There's a little phrase I've used over the years: is I paint pictures and sound.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and you have had stuff featured in films and also TV and all the rest of it as well, haven't you?
Yeah. That's like commercial work, where the library music company gives me they phone me up and say, Ian, can you do 10 or 15 tracks about space? Yeah, sure. I can do space. Don't ask me to do like rock and roll or folk music, but I can do space. And then if they get used on a documentary or on a TV show or used on the radio or whatever, obviously I get royalties from that, and that's quite a nice little source of income in the background.
Do they? Obviously, I've only got about 20 tracks with a company called Synth Tracks, but do they actually inform you when your music is placed on TV, or do you have to search through your PRS statement to find out when it's been played?
I've got some stuff on Synth Tracks as well, because they're linked to the world. No. I just have to look through the PRS. The PRS, the big, large PDF arrives, which
That's
is
right.
obviously
Yeah. Well, obviously, yours must be a lot larger than mine. I get about 3 sheets of every quarter of what I've actually got royalties on.
I've done quite a lot of stuff. It's all a numbers game that I think I've got over 500 tracks with developed. So
yeah, I think I counted that. Yeah, I saw that on the wall the other
adds
night.
up. It adds up.
Absolutely. I mean, the kit you've got behind you there as well, Ian, if you don't mind me saying, is just an astonishing studio. It's beautiful. It's nothing, no other way to describe it, really. It's amazing. So if you were to have this is a horrible question to ask you. If you were to have a desert island synth, if you had to trim that down.
Well, if I was on a desert island, I wouldn't want a synth, though. I would want a boat so I could escape. Or,
there's no boat available. But you have got, luckily, a 3-pin socket that you can plug something into and a nice set of speakers. So you're going to take something with you. What would you take with you to play that you're going to enjoy every single day and still get enjoyment out of the next day, the next day, the next day? Well, still be able to do something new.
We'll go with the VCS 3 because of my history with it. But I still wouldn't play it every day because sometimes, people say to me, oh, look at that studio, you must never go out. I would never go out of there. Well, that's daft. You have to go out. You have to give your brain a rest sometimes. I have to go out with my partner and walk the dog and stuff. You have to give yourself a break. So, but you were talking about inspiration before. Sometimes when you've been doing it for so long, there is a skill set you have. And it's not all about inspiration. Sometimes I work on a track and it's a struggle. And it's like, is this any good? And I'm not quite sure about this. And I'll leave it for a day or two and I'll go back. So it's not all like suddenly kind of descends from the heavens, like, a fully formed track. Yeah. Although having said that, Omicron, I compose and record that in a day. That was one of those tracks that just went pow. But that doesn't happen that often, to be honest.
Yeah, I sometimes have that myself. But, I can do. All of a sudden, I've got a track and I've done it, and it's a day. Then I've got all these work in progresses, and I sometimes may not come back to it for months. So
I don't usually leave it that long, but it's I mean, it just there is a work ethic. There is. I mean, being a composer, musician is to me. It's just a job. It's a nice job. It's a cool job, but it's a job. You have to work hard at it. You have to put in the time. You have to put in the hard yards. If you don't, it is not going to work.
Yeah.
If you had a preference, would you prefer to be the composer or the sound designer? Do you have a preference, or you just think that it's all part and parcel of what you do?
To me, they're the same thing. Sound designing for me, often a piece of sound design can trigger off a whole track.
I guess so, yeah.
And likewise, if I'm composing a track, I may need some sound design to finish the track off. It's all working with sound, so to me, it's all the same thing.
So do you do much collaboration as well, Ian?
Oh yes, I was. You were talking before about how come I've gone on for so long. If you look through the catalogue and DIN, you'll see there people I work with is Marcus Wright, the German touch guitarist, Eric Volo, the Norwegian ambient guitarist, Mark Shreve is part of is Arc, to name but three. Robert Rich. There's a whole host of musicians who over the years I've worked with, and every collaboration with a different musician brings another angle. It brings in ideas in things that you wouldn't have thought of, and also those guys, and often what you come up with is something you wouldn't have done on your own, so that can keep things fresh.
Well, we actually had an Eric Volo song on. Was it last one, Martin, or the one before? I can't remember.
A couple of shows back.
Yeah, about 2 shows ago we had an Eric Volo song on, which is fantastic. Well, it's awesome.
I'll give you a little secret. That's actually what I'm working on today. I was working on a collaboration with Eric Volo.
Oh, really?
Don't tell anyone that. So
too late. It's out of the bag now.
Won't tell anyone.
It'll be well before it's finished. But yeah, Eric's a very interesting musician to work with. He's so easy to get on with, and he just comes up with ideas. He's not precious about what he does. It's very, very nice chap. Very, very easy to work with. And we've done a couple of actually 2 CD albums plus a live album. So that's this will be a new one at some point in time.
So when you're working on something, Ian, and do you take a point where you bounce it off other people, or do you always keep it to yourself and develop the whole thing yourself right the way through and then push it out for reaction, or do you bounce it off people as you're actually producing and going through the process?
Used to keep it to myself. My partner gets to hear Wendy gets to hear what I do, but no, I trust my instincts. too many cooks spoil the broth. If you keep putting out, people be, oh, I don't like that bit. Oh, I'm not sure about this bit. You have to have your courage, your convictions. You have to. One of the hardest things I think a lot of people find is to actually finish something off. Just to say, right, this is finished now. You could fiddle with all the gear we've got now, especially software and computers. You could fiddle until the cows come home, but there is a point. You have to say, this is finished. I like this. This represents what I want to do, and I'm going to put it out in the world. And once it's out in the world, it's not yours any longer. Then people will make what they will of it. There's no point in going back and thinking, yeah, I wish I'd done that, because you wouldn't have done that when you put it out. There's no point in having hindsight.
No, absolutely. And I mean, you mentioned the very kind of exclusive here, the VCS3 album that's coming out soon. So what else does the future hold for you at the moment? Have you got any other plans that you can tell us about?
Currently compiling another Tone Science album, which will be Tone Science 6. These things take a while, so I've got the musicians chosen for that. That series has done extremely well and seems to be very well respected and received. The Eric Volo one, which I mentioned, plus obviously continuing to run DIN. The whole library music production side of things, I'm not doing so much nowadays. I'm kind of pulled back a bit from that. There's only so many hours in the day, and running DIN has taken up a lot more of my time. Excuse me. It would also be nice, of course, to get back to playing live. So hopefully, life as we know it will slowly start to get back to some degree of normality. So it'd be nice to get out to play live again. And like I said, I don't sit here every day for like 12 hours a day working on this gear. Sometimes I like to go out into the world and walk about with the dog and enjoy myself.
If I had that, I would never leave that room.
You would. You say you would.
Is the next live gig is actually going to be? Is the one in Birmingham coming up? Is that to the next live performance?
I think. Well, actually, physical live. I have done a couple of live streaming things, but I think the next physical concert, as far as I know, will be that one in Birmingham. So it's in November.
Seventh Wave, yes.
Yeah, if that goes ahead, that would be great. I played there before. Nice bunch of guys, and it'd just be nice to get out and take some of this gear and make a noise again.
Absolutely. So, Ian, if people don't know how to find your stuff, and I'm sure they do anyway, but can we just tell them where's the best place to go and find some of your back catalogue of things, the things you're doing now?
Well, Bandcamp's always the best. So just simply go to dinrecords.bandcamp.com. So it's like DIN records, one word, .bandcamp.com, and it's all on there.
Okay, well, we're just going to play now the song from the new album, Axiom, which is Omicron. Just want to mention on there as well, because those are two Greek words as well. Axiom is Omicron is a Greek letter O. Axiom is taken, and I had to look this up, I have to admit. It was something taken to be true as an assumption, and then I had to look up exactly what that meant. It's like
a fundamental truth.
Exactly, something that needs to be believed because it doesn't need explaining, kind of thing, isn't it? So was there a reason to put the Greek meaning behind these?
No. I was looking for the track on Portals. Evan had said, "Yeah, we want this kind of B-movie sci-fi kind of thing," and I was thinking of a title. And Omicron just sounds cool. It's like, you can imagine somebody's voice on one of these films, the Omicron effect, and I just thought it had that kind of retro B-movie sci-fi feel. So it's literally. I often choose titles because of the poetic feel of the word, as opposed to any kind of literal kind of effect. So I just thought it sounded nice. It just kind of went with the vibe.
It does.
It's like with DIN Records. I thought, well, DIN must mean something, and I think you're quoted saying it doesn't mean anything, or it just means
it's a word, DIN, which is slightly tongue-in-cheek, of course, because in British DIN means a horrible loud noise. But I was also after a word that was instantly recognisable, easy to, it's very easy. Also, the catalogue number, I like the fact I can use the catalogue number in the record label, so it's DIN 57 or DIN 64. And the logo, everything is just, I like the simplicity, and some of that was inspiration from Fax Records, if you remember Fax. Records in the 1990s. So that was a three-letter word. So that was where it came from.
I thought it was DIN cables. That's what I thought.
Well, there's a German industrial standard, but it's just it's a throwaway. I didn't want anything long and pretentious and difficult to write down. So DIN's nice and simple.
I was comparing it with, obviously, back in the 80s of Mute Records. Obviously, they had their Mute 001s and etc.
Yeah.
Superb. Ian, it's been an utter pleasure talking to you tonight. It
Okay.
really has, and we really appreciate you coming on and giving us your time. It's great to have a legend like you on here, and we're trying to do it. Well, no, seriously, you are, and it's great to have a series of these interviews, and you really are the pinnacle so far, Ian.
Oh, thank you very much. It's been good fun.
And I hope we can come and see you in November, with any luck.
Yes, hope so. Yes, that'd be cool.
Absolutely. And so now we're going to play Omicron from the fantastic album Axiom. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ian Boddy.